Hello, classic rock fans. I am reporting just a couple of days after seeing the Beach Boys in concert at the Riverside Theater in Milwaukee. This is my second time seeing the Beach Boys. The first time I saw them was at Wisconsin State Fair in 2016 when they were on their Pet Sounds 50th anniversary tour. And I'm glad I went to that show, but I will say I think I only enjoyed the second half of it. And that's not really a comment on the band, that's a comment on the venue and the weather. It was extremely hot at the State Fair that day, and I had bad seats. I was in the middle of the row, and the seats at the Wisconsin State Fair are a racetrack, so it was cramped. I was with my brother, and we were jammed up next to each other, and it was hot and sweltering, and everybody was uncomfortable. So I wasn't really enjoying the experience until night fell, and it cooled off a little bit. And also, the Beach Boys, like many bands, absolutely backload their sets. So most of the good music is closer to the end of the show than the start. All that said, I'm still glad I went to that 2016 show because Pet Sounds is one of the greatest classic rock albums ever recorded, and I'm glad I got to see that celebrated live on stage. I will say that was one of the first shows I saw where, and I hate to say this, but the artist's age was really starting to show. There were some moments where, especially Mike Love, his age was starting to come through. So at the time I felt like, well, I'm glad I'm seeing them now because this must be one of my last chances. And then here I am 9 years later and they're still going strong, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be stopping anytime soon. So you never know, right? So why did I go to this show? Well, pretty much the same reason I went to see Alice Cooper just a week or so ago. Tickets were discounted. Tickets were half off, so I was able to get a seat in the section I like. It was an aisle seat, and I paid half price. So I like that, and I thought to myself, I saw the Beach Boys 9 years ago, and I thought they were coming to the end, so this will be a good opportunity to see them one last time. I don't think I will see the Beach Boys again after this. And that's not a critique of the catalog at all, because to be perfectly clear, the Beach Boys have an immortal catalog, one of the greatest of that 60s era classic rock. Just so many songs that have absolutely stood the test of time, and I will always enjoy hearing. And I'll touch on a couple of those songs, but I'm not going to go through the whole set list, because this set list was freaking long, but the show did not drag. The show was 2 hours, almost to the minute. But in those 2 hours, they played 34 songs. That is crazy. I mean, it's like going to a Ramones show where every song is 2 to 3 minutes long. Which I think is a compliment. I mean, they're really packing those songs in. So if you have a favorite Beach Boys song, I'd say there's a pretty good chance you're going to hear it. Especially if it comes from that late 60s period when all their best stuff came out. One of my few critiques of this show would be, of all the songs they picked, maybe it would have been nice to hear some other stuff from like their 80s period or that 2012 reunion album they did. I was genuinely surprised not to hear a song off that record, because I thought that was a fairly big deal in the Beach Boys discography. But I guess that's not the case. They really relied on that, surfer era from the 60s. Which, again, for those who are going to these shows regularly, I'm sure that's their favorite stuff. But, the Beach Boys had a couple of peaks and also valleys through their career. They had the big resurgence in the 80s with Kokomo. And I'm just surprised you didn't hear a little bit more from their whole catalog. If you see Paul McCartney, yes, everybody loves the Beatles stuff, but McCartney's really good about including stuff from Wings and his 80s solo career, and also he is very good about playing what he's been recording lately. So you get a wider look at the full catalog. Beach Boys, I think, played maybe a little too safe. So they did 34 songs, and they broke it up into 2 sets with an intermission in the middle. So I would say some of the highlights of the first set were they did a cover of the Ramones' Rockaway Beach. And it was very funny how they did that. Mike Love said, there's a band out of the New York area called the Ramones, and they did a cover of one of our songs. First of all, I thought it was so funny how he introduced the Ramones as a group out of New York. or something to that effect, as if people don't know who the Ramones are. I'm sure he's being tongue-in-cheek, so I have to say I got a kick out of that. And he said, they covered one of our songs, so we're going to pay him back and cover one of theirs. And I thought that was great. That's a great reason to cover a song from a beloved band like the Ramones, and they did a good version of it. After that, of course, you get more traditional stuff like Surfin' USA and Surfer Girl. And I would say maybe the middle part of the first set is maybe where the weakest material is, but it ramps up again right before intermission, where they do Little Deuce Coupe and I Get Around closes up the first set, and those are big crowd pleasers. And I think the intermission was a smart idea. Of course, it gives the band a break to catch their breaths and reset and, drink some water, whatever they got to do. But for an older crowd, I'm sure that was much appreciated from the audience, too, because I noticed a lot of people got up to run to the bathroom or get another beer or whatever they were doing. And on the point about the crowd, despite the tickets being on sale, I don't think that was a move out of desperation, like it was for Alice Cooper, I must say. I don't think they were feeling the pressure to get more people in because it was a pretty well-attended show. It wasn't sold out, but it felt like a big crowd. There weren't huge gaps of empty seats, and the crowd that was there was enthusiastic. And I gotta give them credit for that. I've been to, metal shows where the enthusiasm isn't that high, you know what I mean? I'll just mention Whitesnake, for example. Saw a lot of people at the Whitesnake show, and they were not headbanging, but head nodding along to the music, and they were enjoying it, but I wouldn't use the word enthusiasm. The Beach Boys, I saw people of all ages jumping up and down and dancing in the aisles, dancing in their seats, singing along. There's a lot of people who really love the Beach Boys, and they're a very family-friendly show, so if you want to bring your kids to a concert, they're a good pick. Okay, so coming back from intermission, we opened with actually some beautiful songs from their catalog. One called The Warmth from the Sun, which Mike talked about writing with his cousin Brian, who of course is another founding member, and I would say the most important member of the Beach Boys. And unfortunately, Brian's health is in decline, so he's in no condition to play shows anymore, and I never got a chance to see him play, and it's kind of why I begrudge Mike Love for reuniting the Beach Boys in 2012, but not keeping that lineup going after that summer tour ended, despite Brian and Al Jardine and pretty much the whole lineup wanting it to keep going. That's kind of the main reason I'm not a big Mike Love fan, is that the Beach Boys got back together in 2012. Everybody loved the reunion. It sounded like everybody in the band was having a good time, and it looked like this could be something that would move forward. And at the end of that 2012 tour, Mike Love just started booking smaller venues for his lineup of the Beach Boys and cut out the original guys of that tour. And I remember them being upset about that, and I remember a lot of fans being really upset about that. And it's too bad, because that's something that the fans definitely wanted, and there was one guy who decided, no, I'd rather do things that keep me in total control of the band, and it's just a shame when that happens. So rather than dwell on that, I will just say that The Warmth of the Sun is a beautiful song, and it was a nice story that Mike told about writing it with Brian. After that, he played one of his solo songs called Pisces Brothers, which was a tribute to George Harrison, and he showed some pictures of him and George from back in the day and talked about going to India with the Beatles back when they were, in India trying to learn some of that musical tradition. I didn't know Mike Love was with them for a little bit of that, so it was interesting to hear that story. And it was cool to see those photos of him and George up on the screen. So I liked that as well. Then moved into God Only Knows, which is one of their most beautiful songs in the whole catalog, and that went over really well. And then suddenly we're in the hit portion of the night. Set 2 is very hits heavy, so this is where the real good stuff started. California Girls, I was hoping he would say something about David Lee Roth before they played it, but he didn't, so, just went into the song. After that, Then I Kissed Her, and then an interesting cover, California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray. I will forward on a winter's day.
Well, I love that song, so I was really happy to hear them play it. And it's interesting that he chose to play it because, for those who don't know, John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas co-wrote the Beach Boys' big comeback hit, Kokomo. So this was sort of a way of paying tribute to his old buddy John. But if you've read Mackenzie Phillips's book, you won't be surprised that Mike Love made no mention of John Phillips while on stage, and I think that was a smart move. I think it's better that they just played the song and didn't say anything about it because the Beach Boys and the Mamas and the Papas were contemporaries. Mamas and the Papas haven't been around as a touring act for years and years, so that song really isn't getting played regularly. The relationship between Mike Love and John Phillips aside, I think it's cool that they added that one to the set list. And then this was my favorite part of the show. After that was Sloop John B., which might be my favorite Beach Boys song.
Drinking all night, got into a fight. Well, I feel so broken, I wanna go home.
And wouldn't it be nice? An all-time great. And then just closing up with hits. Help Me Rhonda, Do You Want to Dance, Good Vibrations, Kokomo, Barbara Ann, and Fun, Fun, Fun. Wow. All of those are great songs. So if you go to a Beach Boys show and you're getting to the venue a little late, don't worry. All of the best stuff will be at the end of the show. So don't panic if you're going to be a little late. Because even if you are a little late, you're going to hear a lot of music. Again, 34 songs in just 2 hours. Now, I had a great time, but I will say I do have a few critiques. The first being is that Mike Love's voice is totally gone. It is shot. And not just his singing voice, his speaking voice. When he talks to the crowd, he's telling some interesting stories, and I appreciate that he talks to the crowd, but his voice is so hoarse, it's just barely there. You can barely hear him. The good news is that the Beach Boys are a vocal harmonizing group, so the rest of the guys in the band, when they're all singing together, it makes up for Mike's vocal shortcomings. There's one guy in the band, I don't know his name, I'll just put his picture up here. This is the guy in the band who can actually sing. He hits all the high notes, and he covers a lot of ground for Mike. So whoever this gentleman's name is, he's the standout talent of the show. So thumbs up for him. I should give Bruce Johnson a shout out. He's one of the original members who's still in the lineup with Mike Love. I don't know much about him, but he was over on keys, and there was a fun moment near the end of the show where Mike and Bruce did a little dance together in the center of the stage. I thought that was entertaining and just a nice moment, so I enjoyed that. I guess my only other criticism is that Mike's son Christian sings lead on a couple of songs, and he's not bad, but he's not Brian Wilson. And that's tough because Brian is a great singer, so it's a very tall order. I don't expect anyone to sound exactly like him, so I'm not really criticizing Christian per se. I will just say that combined with Mike's vocals, it's very clear that the strength of the band now is the harmonizing, not when really anybody is singing lead. So the more that the whole band is singing together, the better. Okay, and then the last thing I'll say is that I did not know that NBA star Kevin Love was Mike's nephew. But I learned that during the show because he made a big deal about it and put Kevin's picture up on the big screen and I think dedicated a song to him. That caught me off guard, but I did get a laugh out of that. And I was also reminded about the Beach Boys having like a resurgence in the 90s because of Full House, because they talked about John Stamos and how John Stamos plays drums with them from time to time. I will say I'm glad Stamos wasn't at this show. I'm not really into that, so I'd rather see the actual lineup of the band than the one where you got an actor cosplaying as a rock star. It's just such a bizarre thing to have in a band's history, but they do, and I guess it was worth a mention, so I got a chuckle out of that as well. But like I said, ultimately a fun show. If you can see them at a good price, I would recommend it. I know they do a lot of like festival shows and county fairs shows and stuff like that. Maybe you can see them where it's free admission or included with admission. That's probably the best way to do it. But yeah, if they're coming to your neck of the woods, especially if you have kids and you want to introduce them to that golden music of the 60s, I think this is a good band to go see. So credit to Mike Love for that. But with that, I will just say thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this review, please check out some of the other concert reviews I've done on this channel. If you're a fan of classic rock, I guarantee I've talked about a different band or artist that you're a fan of. If you are that fan of classic rock, you might want to know I do a podcast that's all about classic rock. We've had a lot of fantastic guests on recently. I'm just coming off my Rockin' Pod 2025 coverage. I was just down in Nashville for Rockin' Pod. Got a lot of great interviews out of that. And we are also coming up on my special 100th episode. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're about to hit the big 100. So stay tuned for that. And with that, thank you again for watching. Please subscribe. And if you've seen the Beach Boys in concert, please tell me about your experience in the comments below. Otherwise, keep rocking.